Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the How About That podcast. Today is a special edition episode with a special guest. On the podcast, we got Eli Rax, aka Vibes of New York Revival. Big Giants guys, Big Giants podcast, great YouTube channel, great Instagram, great Twitter. You can find him at I am Eli Rax on all social media platforms, and New York Revival at New York Revival. Some followers of the podcast may be familiar with his Twitter Spaces, always big for New York Giants things. I know I've been active in before those. So Eli, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Man, thank you so much for having me, man. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much, man. But everything else, man,
Appreciate
it's
it.
all good. It's all good besides the Giants, which we'll get into. You know what I mean? We'll get into. But everything is great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. And like you said, I didn't think we'd be on September, 10th right now talking about the New York Giants football the way we are. But that week one was so bad that I think we need to have a State of the Union talking about the New York Giants right now. And so we're going to break down. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. A lot of the listeners know my thoughts, but we need to get another source in here, a big New York Giants guy, a guy who gets ball. So I guess to get right into it, because I know you got limited time, what do you think the issue stems from? If we had to rank issues 1 through 3, if we had to say one guy's got to go today, whether it's Shane, Dabble, Kafka, a player, where do you think the root of our issues comes from right now?
Listen, we actually had Pat Leonard on the podcast yesterday, right? And he was saying the same things that pretty much, again, for New York Revival, we don't break news, but we're pretty close to what's going on in that franchise. And he said the same thing as what we all thought and what we all been hearing. It's just, at this point, how much blame can you put on the coordinators at this point, right? Like, we already had Wink Martindale, and he got out of town, right? He already had the offensive line coach and Bobby. Then we had the defensive back coaches, taking some accountability for Deontay Banks and the way he played. Defensive coordinator Shane Bowen's in here, and it's still the same results, right? They can't stop the run. The bleeding doesn't stop there. The pass rush is non-existent. So who to blame? At this point, you got to look at the coaching staff and go, man, I don't think, Dayball is the answer. Brian Dayball might be the guy to say, hey, you know what? It's you. The problem is probably you at this point. Getting this team ready, getting them ready to go for the season, it just looks like the Giants always been a slow start since he's been here. Giants haven't really won much since he was coach of the year, right? So at this point, is it Brian Daboll? And I point the finger at him. I'm gonna go absolutely. But however, with the offensive coordinator situation, as far as taking the play calling away from Mike Kafka, then giving it back to him after he was a disaster at doing it, and here's another person I'll throw blame at their feet. It's John Mara. I think the way that John Mara actually meddles into business and the way that he took care of Daniel Jones and the way he treated the Daniel Jones contract and etc. The Saquon Barkley situation, we saw on Hard Knocks how he was trying to meddle into that. And Joe Shane was like, no, we're going to put our foot down on this one. And now he also said, give the play calling duties back to Mike Kafka. And you've seen the game plan. It was just poor execution. And some of the play calls were questionable as well. Yeah, we got to look at John Mara and Brian Daboll and go, maybe this isn't a match made in heaven. And the fact that the roster's the way it is with the drafting and etc. what Joe Shane did, maybe we have a talent issue too. So putting all that in the bubble here, guys, it's pretty tough to say, you know what? It's that one person. At this point, you got to say it's the entire franchise that actually needs some freaking help at this point.
I'm so glad you broke that down because I did a little New York Giants rant, as I often do, as listeners of the podcast know happens, because we get very emotional. We're a very passionate fan base. And I just went through everything. And you said it best. It's not at this point an issue where we can go, that's the problem, or that's not the problem. It's everything. And I don't know if as an organization, we can take to the next step or get better until we reevaluate everything from top down. John Mara, we thought it was awesome when he brought in Shane and Dabble because he kind of went against the way he had been when he brought in McAdoo and Shermer and all of those guys. And we were like, all right, maybe this is a fresh beginning, but he's still putting his foot down or not foot down. He's getting involved in a lot of things. And when we talk about I guess first let's talk about the Dabble situation. I agree. The coaching is insane. And I don't like the coordinator stuff going on. I mean, Shane Bowen, like the defensive game plan, terrible. Mike Kafka still being an offensive coordinator for this team blows my mind and makes you think, how involved is Dable in the offensive game planning? He's got to be very involved for Kafka to still be here. When you look at the points per game from 2022 to 2024, we've consistently dropped every single year. This offense isn't getting better. And for year 4, for us to say we've gotten worse but not better, and we still haven't made a change at play calling or play schemes or anything, it is, I just don't understand how every other team in the NFL would make that change except us. So I think we can point the finger at Dabble in a lot of those situations. And, when we talk about talent, the draft class, we'll get into those with Shane because those are terrible.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Clearly, like, Dabble's not putting the right guys in the building. Like, you mentioned the offensive line coaches, the defensive back coaches. Like, how do we have such a lack of developmental people in the building as an organization? The fact that Brian Dabble, when we look at the comments last year, was it Pat Shermer's article that had all of the just terrible quotes and stories from out of the building? I forget who it was exactly. But
actually, probably Pat Leonard. Yeah, probably Pat Leonard.
Pat Leonard, that's what I meant to say, sorry.
Pat Leonard is that guy, and this is why the Giants fans, or some of the Giants fans, maybe most, hates Pat Leonard, because he really does have his heir to the franchise. And people will say, like, he'll get some good intel, and then come to find out, boom, it happens. Like, look what he said when Kadarius Toney was on the trading block, right? Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, it's not true. And they were like, you're stirring up stuff here, Pat Leonard. You're terrible. Well, guess what? A month later, Kadarius Toney was traded. You know what I mean? So also when he's been on the money so far with Pat Leonard, right?
For the last 5 years, he's been nailing it. Even beyond that, I would say like 8 years. A story comes out, everyone blames Pat Leonard, and then he's right. And you know what? Credit to Pat Leonard, he doesn't dance on great. Like, he goes to the next story. So I got to give Pat a lot of credit.
Listen, he does, man. Like I said, we had him on yesterday on the podcast, and we continue to have him on. But each time we announce him, man, you got to see the people in the comments. Why Pat Leonard? Why not? The guy has been absolutely right for many years now. He also predicted last year to go 3-14. Guess what?
Yep.
Guess what? You know what I mean? And he predicted, I think, the same thing this year. So the Giants, when you look at that and Pat Leonard, right, and you look at the roster and et cetera, and just to say, hey, what's changed here, right? You would think, after he took a team like the Giants to the playoffs with Daniel Jones, which he was scapegoated, right? And we'll get into that, I'm sure. And then you look at the roster. Malik Neighbors wasn't here when they went to the playoffs at that time. It was just Saquon Barkley and his show and etc. So you look at this roster now compared to the time they went to the playoffs. You go, this is a better roster. Right? You just go, man, they got the quarterback in Russell Wilson. They also got the future there. They got Jameis Winston, which is much better than any backup that we actually had at this point in Jackson Dart, right?
You're telling me Davis Webb wasn't a groundbreaking quarterback?
Heck no! I think all your listeners will probably be like, Davis who at this point, right? Right? You just go, who was the guy with the long neck, too? Like, he was also there at one point as a backup. Jake Fromm from State Farm? Terrible, right?
Yeah.
Right? You just go, what the hell is going on here? So we upgraded in positions, right? All around the board is what we thought, and they still can't win a game or score points at this present time. So it's just so much, man, that's just, it's a culmination of things. And it's just hard to say, hey, this guy is it. But I tell you this, I think it's time. Like, if the Giants start to, and guys, Vegas has us about winning only 5 games this season. So we're supposed to lose a ton of games, right?
It's supposed to be
We're
bad.
supposed to. But once you see the preseason, it gave you kind of fool's gold a little bit. You just go, maybe they are better than what Vegas is saying. But to get to the point, if they start going 0-5 and they look the way they looked in week 1, Brian Daboll's out of here. Daboll's out of here. And not too far behind, it's going to be Joe freaking Shane at this point. So it's a tricky season here, man. It's just hard. I think they just have to clean house at this point. We'll see.
And I was calling for the clean house last year. I said, in my opinion, has always been, if you know the answer in the NFL, the longer you take to act, the worse it gets. And I think this could be a prime example of it. But last year we had the opportunity to reset GM, head coach, and quarterback. And now we didn't. So now we have the quarterback, but the whole GM, this is a different conversation we don't need to worry about. But now it's like, all right, if we get rid of him this year, this is not a GM and head coach attached to Dart. Now Dart's the scapegoat, just like Daniel Jones was a scapegoat for this regime. So
Yeah.
it creates this entire mess. But you bring up a great point in just how it can't be one thing because it feels like it's everything. And the talent is better when we look
Yep.
at it. Like
Yep.
it is a lot better. That 2022 team, we had like Isaiah Hodgins was our best receiver. And he got cut from this team because the receiving room's that much better. The defensive line should be the best asset we have. But it just amazes me how we put these coaches in positions, these assistant coaches who just I don't know what was discussed in the building and how things got approved. But for example, like Bowen's philosophy of I'm only going to play our four-headed monster of Kayvon Thibodeau, who I'm honestly not the biggest fan of, Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, and Brian Burns. I'm going to only play them 8 snaps together.
Crazy.
That is
Crazy.
like that, and I'm fine with not blitzing every time when he got that, but we got to get after the quarterback in this league.
And don't forget, if you look back on the All-22, right, you'll see Abdul Carter playing spot. It's just like that's not his talent. You know what I mean? Like his talent's to go after and rush the quarterback. So, and also he's putting guys in position in the secondary that usually plays man-to-man coverage. He's putting them in zone for most of the time, which is their weakness. So you got to scratch your head and go, what the hell's going on with Shane Bowen, right? But at the same time, to hold Washington to 21 points, you go, damn, that was good. Right? Like that was good enough. Right? It's just the Giants couldn't score the amount of points that they should have. At some point, the levy, they kept him at 14 to the third quarter. The levy broke at the fourth. The Giants well enough in this game to do something. They just couldn't do it. But when you start looking back and peeling the onion, you just go, man, the highlight of it, and it still was bad, don't get me wrong, but the highlight of the Giants in week 1 was the defense. And that's like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, 21 points. Washington's a scoring powerhouse. Let's be honest here. Like, these guys could put up 30, 40 points. It could have been a blowout. But they honestly kept us in the game, even with the poor game planning of Shane Bowen.
And that just shows the amount of talent we have. Like,
right.
If we get the right schemes in here, this defense is expected or could be like literally a top 5 defense. But we're not putting the guys in position. And when we're not doing that, we still find success. But you bring up a great point. We scored 21 points. We were in 13 plays inside the 10. I think 9 of them inside the 3-yard line. And we didn't score a touchdown. And that just goes back to, like, that's the thing. It's a never-ending circle with this team of you bring up a positive and you're like, yeah, but it can't be a positive because of the negative over here.
So glaring,
and then we get into the Kafka conversation. And so I guess the only thing I want to wrap up on here in terms of to stop us from talking in circles, since I know you got limited time, is you made a great point about Andrew Thomas when you did your 15-minute solo pod, where the O-line is a massive problem. It was terrible. It was abysmal. How we got to this point and we still get worse every year, I think speaks to Joe Shane. But we are a better offensive line when Andrew Thomas is on the field, but he's never on the field. And I said it as well. It's like you said it perfectly. The best ability is availability. He's never on the field. I can't count on him. No. So how do we make in worse offensive line, like, or bad offensive lines in football still score touchdowns, right? Yep. The Vikings had their left tackle out Monday night and look what they did. So
absolutely.
How can we not do it as well? And that goes to coaching, and that goes, I think, to also just player development and roster build. But to continue on the offensive conversation, what is your thoughts on how we handle Dart? Because eventually he's going to be what Dabble and Shane have to use as their last card to try to flip this thing around and save their jobs.
And it's funny, I'll use the Dart thing last there, but I want to go back a little bit, and I want to talk about the offensive line and Andrew Thomas. Like, a lot of people will say, and just to let you know, I believe there was a report that came out. He's not practicing yet. he's not practicing. So week 2 looks a little bit bleak as well. Doesn't look good. But just going back, yes, the best ability is availability. And a lot of people will say, once we get Andrew Thomas back, oh, we're going to be great. We're going to be this. And I'm like, guys, I just don't see it. A lot of people gave me hell for this. I actually put out like a minute video in my car where I was like, okay, I'm thinking about this here. If I seen how the O-line played, and if Andrew Thomas come back and people think that we're going to be in the middle of the pack or this elite offensive line unit, you got another thing coming. You got to tamper those expectations a little bit, because the main problem of that was the interior of the line. The
Yeah.
JMSs, the Van Rotens, those guys was having their lunches ate the entire
Mhm.
time in that game. And Washington was pretty smart, because they were like, hey, we're going to send a little bit of people. But after a good amount of plays, they were like, all we need is 4. These guys can't block us to save their lives at this point.
They didn't have to do
And
anything.
they didn't have to do anything spectacular. Those guys were just giving up on plays. If you look at that all 22 and you just look at the offensive line, you're going to see they're just letting them by. It just seemed like these guys couldn't pick up which one here. It seemed like the communication was off between those guys and the O-line. And guess where the communication starts? The quarterback of the offensive line is the center. So JMS can't even get those guys to say, hey, once this guy rolls off, let me see if I can roll off and block at least the tackle here while you take the edge or this, that, and the third. It was none of that there. These guys look confused there. It seemed like the protection was there as far as Russell Wilson trying to figure out, like, okay, let me see if I can put people into the best positions. They just couldn't block at this point. You know, so it's just like, man, like, where did it go? So with Andrew Thomas coming back, I don't think it's going to be anything different. It's going to be the same thing as just the quarterback has their blind side protected. That's it.
Yep.
And as far as Dart is concerned, the only way to save this regime and for Brian Daboll to keep his job, because the only person that sat up in that war room and wanted a quarterback, because they really wanted Shedeur Sanders. They really wanted, newsflash people, they really wanted Shedeur Sanders. That's why they went down there. But Daboll put his foot down and said, I need Jackson Dart in this building. If he looks remotely competent and that offense scores points, that will save Brian Daboll's job for probably another 2 years to go. Yeah. I'm telling you right now. You know what I mean? So Jackson Dart probably needs to start sooner rather than later, because if you see, and guys, I had Jackson Dart sitting the entire year. I didn't think Russell Wilson was going to think up the joint, right?
That has been a pillar of this podcast. Right. I can tell you what, is Jackson Dart does not play this season.
And I don't want that. You know what I mean? But with the way that Russell Wilson looked, you just got to go, okay, maybe week second half of week 2, right? Yeah. Right? If it looks terrible, maybe the second half to get some sort of spark, right? But if and that's if Russell Wilson doesn't look or does look the same as week 1. So you might see Jackson Dart in here sooner than later. If the Giants look competitive and they lose by like a field goal or they lose by a touchdown and Russell Wilson looks a little bit good, you're probably going to start to see Jackson Dart somewhere in about the week 10 range. In that, if the season's gone, week 10, you'll probably see Jackson Dart. But I'm telling you right now, if that first half of the Dallas game looks just exactly like how they did in Washington, you're going to see Jackson Dart near the second half. No Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart near the second half, just to give some sort of spark. I see it coming.
Yeah, I do too. As much as it sounds like you don't want it and I don't want it, it's going to happen just because of the situation and guys trying to save their job. If Dabble had and Shane had like an extra year of runway, let's say, right? Like if this is 2020, if this is last year and Dart's in the building, I think that they can progress it a little bit, but they're on the line right now. And so they got to make it happen. And I believe in Dart. I like Jackson Dart. I think that he adds a spark to this offense that we haven't had from the quarterback position, like really ever. Like his style of quarterback play is not the style that we've had. And it's also the style that I think we've seen the most success in Dabble's offenses over the course of his career is this style of quarterback. So I think it will be an improvement. But what scares me is how much, not pressure, but a lot of New York Giants fans are like, yeah, but once Dart gets in, like, people are saying Dart's going to solve us. This guy hasn't played a legit NFL snap yet. And as much as we want to say the preseason looked good, Russell Wilson looked good in the preseason too. Like I can't use that as a judge. So I get nervous of, okay, we're going to throw this guy in and he's going to solve our problems. We haven't seen him play a snap yet. And also when I look at Brian Daboll as the New York Giants head coach, every quarterback has looked the same. Like Russell Wilson looked exactly like Daniel Jones did last year. And they're completely different quarterbacks. And so I get scared and as it's not a smart decision football-wise, and they won't do it, and there's no reason for them to do it. And once they said that Jackson Dart was QB2, it eliminated this. I want to see Jameis Winston play for us because I want to see if it's the offense or if it's the quarter. Like I don't think it'll fully answer the question, but if Jameis Winston comes in and is not launching the ball downfield and taking shots, then that tells me this is not a quarterback issue. This is a scheme issue. This is a coaching issue
Mhm.
because of who Jameis is, and we completely take that style of play away from him. So it's not going to happen, but I'd be curious to see it. And then I get scared saying that Dart is going to save us. I do get scared about that.
And you know what? I'll tell you that. We'll go back and say, hey, tamper the expectations. I think Giants fans are very impatient. So if
Yeah.
Jackson Dart comes in there and stinks up the joint, they're going to be like, they even got him wrong. So,
Yeah.
and I think the guy can play in the NFL. I really do
I do
think
too.
so. I just think he needs a little bit more time. Again, a lot of people in this draft class this year were saying this is the most weakest draft class we ever seen as far as quarterbacks is concerned. So if you're saying that, and again, I think it was I think it was weak, but I think it was some players there. But if you're saying that, guys, won't you want him to sit down and learn as much as possible and have that stew brew a little bit there? You got to cook the
Mm-hmm.
gumbo to make it. Gumbo takes a long time to cook. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we
He's
saw it
that
with
gumbo.
JJ.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, look what they did with, like, JJ got hurt, but still, that was those mental reps, learning the playbook,
Yes.
learning it from behind, other quarterbacks, etc. will get you to learn. Listen, I understand Giants fans are chomping at the bit. We've been in down for so long, but we have to play this out, and it has to take its time, in my opinion. If we rush him in there too early, especially behind his offensive line, and he doesn't do what we expect, Giants fans are going to get rid of this guy as soon as possible before he can do anything for us at this point.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I want them to take his time as much as possible at this point. But I tell you, with the fact of Jameis Winston coming in, I don't think it'll be the same because Jameis Winston is a statue back there. While Russell Wilson gives you some sort of an elusiveness, not anymore as like what he used to as far as like Seattle is concerned. But he gives you a little bit of what Brian Daboll looks for, right? Those elusive quarterbacks that's going to tuck the ball and run if no one's open and etc. Jameis Winston is just going to stand tall in the pocket and get hit and throw you interceptions. So I think it won't fix it as far as the quarterback's concerned. You're going to see the same mess. However, you'll see some chances being made, throwing to neighbors and etc. But you also see a lot more picks, and that's going to frustrate. Get Jameis out of here. That's going to frustrate some Giants fans as well. So it's like a damn if you do, a damn if you don't. You know what I mean? And going back and just looking at the game, I think it was poor execution on top of poor quarterback play. Because on certain screens or rub routes, they wasn't really doing that like any type of rub routes there. The screens were terrible. The blocking was atrocious, as we just said before. So I think it was just as far as execution and as far as perfection, because the Giants had issues with that since Brian Daboll has been here. So I think they have to, and again, a lot of people gave me hell when I said these guys need to be in the preseason and they need to play a lot. Oh, injuries, Eli, you're crazy. These guys are going to be injured. What are you, nuts? No. Because no matter what, you got to practice. Practice makes perfect. We can't sit here and be scared about injuries. Because guess what's now? A lot of people hurt. We just lost McFadden. He didn't play much in the preseason, right? Freaking,
it's football.
It's football. So the more reps you have for these guys, the better the outcome and the better they'll look. And right now you're seeing them not gelling enough because there wasn't enough time. There's no 2-a-days no more in practice. It's a walkthrough and a couple hitting drills and you're done for the week. So they got to go out there and get those live reps in preseason. Otherwise, you're going to have the results just like you see in week 1. And guess what? You'll probably see the Giants get a little bit of competitive late in the season, a la when you saw Tommy DeVito win a couple games for you that made no sense, and it's going to decrease your draft value. You're going to see that late in the season, guys. But they should have did this early. It's just sloppy play all around. And I guess it goes to coaching, right? I guess if you want to add that too.
Yeah, who could have used some reps and looked like they have never played together as a unit as the offensive line that you talked about earlier with the breakdown of communication. So it is everywhere, and it's just funny. It just keeps going back to coaching, and I think that we've seen enough that I found a tweet that I put out in January of just I refuse to buy into this team until we get rid of this regime.
I was
and that. Then I got to August and I was like tempering. I was always the optimist. I was tempering expectations, but I like had the reminder of this is why I made that tweet in January, because I knew deep down this was going to happen as much as I hate it. So I guess talking about that, we've talked about coaching a lot. I just want to ask, what is your thoughts on Joe Shane's free agent signing ability and draft talent ability? Because a lot of people know that 2023 class is officially gone with the wind less than 2 years in. So, your thoughts on Joe overall?
I look at Joe Shane, right? And guys, if you don't know, now you know, right? When we did the whole pointing the finger at Joe Shane, and then the Giants came down on certain content creators and etc. Again, guys, we're just calling a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Shane understands, I think, the job that he's doing, and it's kind of poor. So, of course, you want to try to do damage control. But to wrap it up here, I won't go back in the past too much. And shout out to the Giants. But if I had to give a grade, and honestly speaking, and they'll probably hate me for this, I'm looking at Joe Shane and I'm looking at the roster because right now it's 98% his besides the Dexter Lawrence and the ATs of the world. This is a terrible roster. So I'm going to have to give him a grade of, I don't want to say an F because there's some people in here like the Malik Neighbors, right? So a D.
Yeah.
D minus. I'll give you Joe Shane. And the reason why it's a D minus because again, I was like, oh man, A plus. Trust me, I drank all the Kool-Aid I could, brother. I was just like you. I had him at 10 wins, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? But the reason why I'm looking at it now because I'm like, man, the jury was still out on JMS, but now that we're getting a full picture of him, and it seems he's still a liability. His signing abilities, when you look at the Van Rotens, right, of the world, you just go, man, that was a terrible signing. Maybe he probably hit on Brian Burns, and that's it. We still got to look at Paulson and Debo and et cetera and see if there's some people there. And the other people he signed probably not even on the team anymore, like the Isaiah Hodgins, because these guys were low on the totem pole. So you got to look at it and go, man, that's all a D all around. This is your roster here now, man. So and they only went to the playoffs with a Dave Gettleman roster, right?
I was gonna say it. I'm so glad you said it because people seem to forget it was a Dave Gettleman built roster. That got us to the playoffs.
Absolutely,
how insane is that?
Which is mind blowing. And here we go, man. We gotta get rid of Dave Gettleman. We should have, you know what I mean? But when you look at it, you go, man, this was mostly a Dave Gettleman roster that took us to the playoffs back then. Now that it's Joe Shane's, and you see that you're losing games. And the coaching staff ain't really helping much. Joe Shane probably deserves to go just as much as Brian Daboll. Because I don't want to hear that. Because, again, rumor has it, or what the streets are saying, the Giant streets are saying, is that scapegoat next is going to be Brian Daboll, and they'll keep Joe Shane. I don't want to see that at all.
My God.
I want them all to go. Because if you look at it, there's no talent here either. And we thought after preseason, we was like, man, they cut some good players. Oh my gosh, Tommy DeVito looked great too. This person looked great too. They cut some good people. Well, like we can't even compete at an NFL level, it seems. You know, so Joe Shane, D minus. I mean, I'm probably being real generous here. You know, let me ask you, what's your grade would you have for Joe Shane at this point?
I would agree with that completely because I don't want to say F because we have gotten a couple high-end talent under him, but at the end of the day, it's like if we didn't get what I believe to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL, like eventually, if not now, it is an F. And I think he's getting covered because Dabble's so bad right now and everything in the coaching is so bad that the finger's not going up to him yet. If this was our scheme is there, but our talent is like our scheme is elevating us multiple games, then I think that we would be pointing the finger at him. But let's be honest, the talent of this team is, I don't know, 6-7 wins, and the scheme is making it 4 or 5.
Right.
So I think that I bought in early. You know, I liked what he was doing, but once we've seen the, you know, how his work actually is panning out, I just can't buy in. And I refuse to at this point. I can't get fooled again. I've been fooled like so many times. I can't get fooled again, Eli.
At this point, it's funny you say that, right? Because I was like, man, I'm just like you. I'm so optimistic of this team. I'm a homer, man. I'm a Giants fan first, a content creator. Yep. I don't want to say second, but I'm a Giants fan. I'm doing this because I'm a fan. So when I go in there and I go, man, 10 wins, and they lay an egg like this, I tell you this right now. I'm like you. I'm like, after Dallas, if we lose, and it's convincing, and I mean blowout, not predict blowout.
I think I said 34-6 on the pod.
Woo! I'm not mad at that. And you know what? I'm gonna say 34-3.
Okay, there we go.
Say 34-3. Like I'm gonna go a little bit down from you. I think we'll get a field goal. And a lot of people will go, man, we have a chance to beat Dallas. I'm telling you right now, their pass rushes are the same. Well, who are you comparing it to? They played the Eagles and almost won. The
Yep.
Eagles are Super Bowl defending champions, so if they played them tough and they almost won that, what the heck you think they're gonna do to the Giants? Like guys, just because their flaws is their flaws against a Super Bowl winning champion doesn't mean it's gonna be the flaws against ours. They're probably gonna eat, they're gonna feast, and they're gonna laugh doing it at their stadium and having fun and high-fiving at our expense. So Giants fans, I'm telling you right now, and I'm like you, brother, if they lose this game, there is no more optimism for this freaking franchise from here on in. I'm trying to kick their back in at this point. So, guys, if you want to have a good time, come on over to New York Revival because I'm going to kick their back in for the rest of the season. Kayvon Thibodeau already hates me, man. All right? I kick his back in whenever he can because why? I'm like, dude, you have the talent to be great. Just not doing enough here. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if you're just saying, coach, stop telling me what to do and just let me go. I don't know what it is, but you got to figure it out, especially being a high draft pick. Evan Neal's just Evan Neal. He was inactive last week. Like, what
Healthy.
is healthy scratch?
And he's interior offensive line. They thought he was so much worse than our starting offensive line. They didn't play him.
You know what I was saying? I was like, yo, with the offensive line being the way it is, why is he a healthy scratch? Just try him. What you got to lose? It's still porous anyway. Yeah. Right? This offensive line is still porous, so who cares? Put him in and give it a shot. It was a healthy scratch, for goodness sake. The Giants, man, laughing stock. But I'm like you, brother. If it doesn't look like it's good or at least competitive football in Dallas, and if it's not a close game, I'm kicking their back, and optimism is out. They don't deserve it. That's the thing, guys. It's not like we're hating on the Giants. We love this team. Otherwise, we wouldn't be podcasting about them. They just don't deserve it right now. They don't deserve our sympathy right now. They probably don't even deserve our dollar right now. We turned into the modern-day era of the freaking Cleveland Browns, and they're even performing better than them because shout out to Stefanski over there. You know what I mean?
With Joe Flacco.
With Joe freaking Flacco. You make me want to cry right now.
Yeah. Who won Super Bowls 3 years prior to Russell Wilson or whatever it was. Like, it's
just mind-boggling to me. Again, fans, it's just not hate. And we're brave enough to get on this microphone and really say how we feel. And fans give us hell, especially me. They'll give me hell because you're like, Eli, you're supposed to be the most positive guy. It's hard to be positive when the product looks this bad.
Yep.
And I said this before last year when they were trying to hush content creators. I was like, guys, we don't make a dime off you. Like, as far as talking about you, we're trying to find creative ways to stay relevant because we just love to do what we do at this point. You know, so. Do they deserve any of this? Absolutely not. They need to earn our trust back as fans. And I think you and me, like-minded individuals like us, just are fed up. Just fed up with the product, the way the direction of the franchise, this pristine franchise that we know called the New York Giants that is rich in history. They named a football after our owner, the Duke. And we're coming here laying the egg for the past 10, whatever years that you guys want to say it is. It's just like ridiculous, man. It's just really, really ridiculous. And we just had enough. So I'm done. They can't do it in week 2. I'm done. Longer story longer. I apologize.
No, because you know what? I appreciate that so much because I have to do that story on the podcast. And it's really good for these listeners to hear it from another Giants fan. So thank you so much. I know you got to go. I appreciate you letting us go over a couple more minutes. But thank you again for taking the time. As I said at the end of our other podcast, I just hope it's worth it one day. I hope it's all worth it one day so we can be at the top of the mountain. We can look back at, the past and say, man, we went through a lot of stuff to get here, and it makes it that much sweeter. Thank you, Eli. Check him out. I am Eli Rax at New York Revival. Have a good one, and go Giants.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.